Prepare to mobilize Liger Jaeger! Your moves were predictable.
Your moves are weak. There were no moves. To the Bay of Corsairs do we travel today to watch as the mighty Settra, King of Kings, awakens from his slumber alongside his faithful kitty cat. We've got snakes, scarabs, and a whole bunch of Brendan Fraser's most hated adversaries facing down Ramsay Bolton and the Reavers from the north. A lot of ways for both the Tomb Kings and Dark Elves to approach this particular matchup, but artillery is typically going to be part of it for both sides. Personally, I think the Casket of Souls is a good choice here, and Reaper Bolt Throwers are a good counter to Constructs and Ushabti Greatbows. So for the Dark Elves, Rakarth the Beastlord is riding Brachus, his Black Dragon. They're going for the Weapon Strength strat. I've seen it before, but maybe not for Rakarth, who can stack Whiplash and Beast Slaver with his innate bonus versus large to absolutely punish enemy monsters. But it gets even scarier when you add magic to the mix, which is why the Druki have two casters in this one. Cascading Fire Cloak, Flaming Sword of Ruin, and Occam's Mindrazor from the Shadows caster. If all those buffs hit at once, can probably get him up to around 1300 plus weapon damage with like 40 bonus versus large. I.e., Settra and his War Kitty need to be super careful about taking any kind of duel with Rakarth. But besides that spicy strat, nothing too wild on the Dark Elves side. Bunch of Dread Spears, Dark Riders, a unit of Witch Elves, 2 Reaper Bolt Throwers, and a unit of Scourge Runner Chariots, led by those two aforementioned casters. Across the desert for the Tomb Kings, the Casket is a really fun artillery piece. Great for devastating blocks of infantry, even from max range, and unlike most artillery, it can't lose any models, which means it will not be losing firepower. You can put 90% of damage into it, and it'll still be shooting at peak efficiency. And Settra the Imperishable has skipped the Chariot of the Gods and opted for the mighty Khemrian Warsphinx, which, as you saw in the intro, has some wild charge animations that evaporate 30 plus dudes in a blink. Almost functions more like a 50-ton chariot than a regular construct. He has his Blessed Blade of Petra for dueling and blinding enemies, Nero's Incantation of Protection, and Jaff's Incantation of Cursed Blades, which is an amazing spell. It will give himself or allied troops weapon damage and 16 bonus versus large, allowing them to perform much better against enemy cav or monsters. And by spamming the low cast spells on cooldown, you're given map-wide heals with the Lore of Nakara passive every time you cast. So lots of synergy there. And in fact, that's why you can get away with bringing in regular Necropolis Knights, who have much better stats than the Halberd version, but of course lack the killing power versus large troops. I don't like the Halberd version. Their poor stats seem to always get them killed, but pop Cursed Blades on the regular variant, and they will do everything the Halberd one can with way more staying power and effectiveness versus all targets. Really like them as a backline sweeper. Besides that, just some Nakara Horsemen, very good mid-tier cav, bunch of spooky, scary Skelly Boys, and Ushabti Greatbows, and those are the builds. So as this battle gets underway, the Tomb King should be able to sit back for a while and plunk away at these Dread Spears with the Casket of Souls. Dark Elves will need to close the gap here, but the Reaper Bolt Throwers will be able to outshoot the Casket pretty easily in an artillery duel. Again, they should be able to push it backwards. Killing it off is another matter entirely. They can't get rid of any of its shooting effectiveness. They can only push it backwards. So it can kind of sit in the pocket for a while and continue shooting at the infantry while the Reaper Bolt Throwers plunk away at it. And it's only when it gets low that it has to retreat, which of course isn't even taking into consideration the Ushabti Greatbows and all the ranged firepower they can unleash towards some of the higher value targets. I'm not really sure what those Dread Spears are doing right now. They're having a fun little powwow over there on the Dark Elves' left flank, but the Reaper Bolt Throwers are in range. Casket will try to take them out, but I'm not sure how effective that will be. His first volley was actually quite good, but yeah, you can already see that innate bonus versus large and decent armor piercing chunking through the Casket, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna be pretty painful for that single entity. Already, Scourge Runner Chariots moving up as well. I don't think it will be able to get in range of the Casket of Souls, but one great way to improve your artillery's firepower is give them fire. Flaming Sword of Ruin, great tool for most artillery pieces. Casket continuing to obliterate the Dread Spears over on the Druki left flank, but Reaper Bolt Throwers with Flaming Sword of Ruin, extra fire damage, extra magic damage, extra missile strength. Casket's getting sniped out hardcore. The cool thing you can do in a situation like this, though, is leave it as bait. As I said, If you deal 90% damage to the casket and it doesn't crumble out, you've kind of wasted your time. Firing into the Ushabti is guaranteed bang for your buck because they'll lose models, ammo, and fighting effectiveness. So perfectly reasonable to invest time into trying to kill it, but once that casket starts moving out of range, might be time to switch targets and try to hunt it down with the Light Cav or Rakarth. The Dark Riders moving up the center, charging into the Skelly Boys. Settra doesn't really want to get too close here. There are Witch Elves and the Reaper Bolt Throwers nearby. Scourge Runner Chariots getting thrown into the mix as well. Cool thing about them that a lot of people probably don't realize is they will fire while in melee, which means if they charge into stuff like Ushabti Great Bows or Constructs, they can use their mass to tie them up, to prevent them from moving, and still get all that AP bonus for large shots going the way of their intended target. So many reasons why the Scourge Runner Chariot is a meta pick and is a very nice one for the Dark Elves, but that's definitely one of them. Firing in melee is a pretty big deal. Nakara Horseman disengaging from the Dread Spears, catching a few Dark Riders napping, and this is about as brutal as it gets. Ushabti Great Bows have perfect line of sight to fire into their flank. It's only a 500 gold cavalry unit, so not the end of the world if they end up going down there, which they probably will. Nakara Horsemen, I think, are one of the best light cav units in the game. They're more mid-tier price. They're 650, so they're a little bit more expensive than Illyrian Reavers and Dark Riders and some of those other light cav, but they have very decent stats, quite a versatile unit, and they can be supported by one of the cheapest, most spammable spells in the game, Jaff's Incantation of Cursed Blades, to give them that 16 bonus versus large, which will allow them to turn pretty much any cav fight that's not against something that's like unreasonably better than them into one that will be a victory. Ushabti Great Bows firing in from the flank. Realm of Souls, the first stage of it, has popped for the Tomb Kings, and those Dark Riders are super freaking dead. That's a bad situation for them. Came to the wrong neighborhood, motherlickers. And in the center, Dark Riders are rounding off, but a Burning Head on the Dark Elves' left flank being set up, and that should melt quite a few Skeleton Warriors and allow those Scourge Runners to break through and start putting some pressure on perhaps Settra and the Ushabti Great Bows, who are at the moment a bit indisposed, dealing with the Dark Riders pouring in from the flank, and that's not a bad engagement for the Dark Elves at all. This should set up a pocket where Rakarth can descend from the heavens and perhaps get the duel he's been searching for with Settra the Imperishable. Now, Settra, on his Khemrian Warsphinx, has never been known for being an incredible duelist. He's more a lawnmower, a mulcher of infantry. But like I said, give him Incantation of Protection and Jaff's Incantation of Cursed Blades and that Blessed Blade of Patra, and he's certainly not terrible in a duel, but he has no hope against Rakarth when Beastslaver, Flaming Sword of Ruin, Whiplash, and all these buffs are being popped, and that's only half of them right now. So Rakarth is up to 952 weapon strength at the moment. Again, roughly around 40 bonus versus large. He's now up to 1,050 weapon strength, and already things are beginning to get very scary for that Warsphinx. Settra is feeling the effects, even with the Blessed Blade of Patra, to lower the melee attack and defense of Rakarth. The stats are just out of control. They're out of this world for Ramsay Bolton at the moment, and Settra's getting taken to Pound Town. This is not a good fight for him, and he actually doesn't have a lot of support over here either. The Ushabti Great Bows could maybe provide a little bit of mass, but they won't really do a whole lot. Even if they get a full surround off on Rakarth, they'd be much better off just shooting him from point-blank range. Realm of Souls has hit stage 3. That means Ushabti summon in the back line to deal with the Reaper Bolt Thrower crews and Necropolis Knights that push through the center alongside some Nakara Horsemen screaming in from the flank, and they should be able to shut down the artillery for good, silence those Reaper Bolt Throwers, and prevent them from sniping out the casket or some of these other constructs. But Settra down to half HP in only a handful of seconds, and he's running, and he needs to, because Rakarth, even though those buffs have disappeared, he still has the innate bonus versus large and the ability to engage at any point that he wants. It means he always gets his charge bonus off, while Settra cannot against flying targets, and Settra's in a lot of peril. A lot of danger. Dark Riders coming back from the edge of the map. Ushabti Great Bows trying to provide a little bit of enfilade fire from the flank, shooting into Rakarth, and dealt a little bit of damage to him. Typically don't want a situation like this if you're the Tomb Kings. Settra is incredibly expensive. You don't want him on the run for the entirety of a battle, so they've got to do something to get him back into the fight. ready to duel or at least bulldoze some infantry and start turning the fight in that capacity. Ushabti Greatbow is being straight up murdered by Scourge Runner chariots in melee. We'll talk about that in a second. Meanwhile, the summon in the back line and the Necropolis Knights more than enough to deal with these Dark Riders, and most of the light cav for the Druchii have all but disappeared. Casket's still online, and it was taken down to about 20% health or so, so those Reaper Bolt Throwers, I wouldn't say they were wasted in trying to kill it off, but they didn't end up doing everything they needed to do to silence it for good, and that's gonna hurt. That's why the Witch Elves disappeared. They got evaporated by the Casket of Souls, and many of these Dread Spears are still under a tremendous amount of pressure as well, because that Casket artillery piece is still online. Ushabti summon should be about to crumble out any second now. Just left them in against the Dread Spears to do a little bit of damage whenever they can. Settra is still running, but now he has the mass and maneuverability and some help from the Necropolis Knights and Nakara Horsemen to zone out Rakarth and get him in a better situation. Scourge Runners have routed, but they did their job. More than that, they ran over a bunch of infantry, and they killed off a full Ushabti Greatbow unit by tying them up in melee and shooting at them at point-blank range. Very potent combination there. Casket, a little bit of friendly fire, but probably willing to trade that just because Skeleton Warriors are much cheaper than Dread Spears. And Rakarth, his morale is very low. I'm not actually sure why it's so low. I realize he's being shot by Ushabti Greatbows at the moment. That's why he's lost the majority of the HP he's lost so far. Still a bit weird to see him in such a precarious leadership position. Necropolis Knights and the Khemrian Warsphinx charging right up the center. And there are a few things in Warhammer 2 more satisfying than a Khemrian Warsphinx charge. The Dread Spears just turn into a red mist as soon as they make impact, and even though they are bonus versus large, I don't think they're going to perform very well against all these constructs. Now, Rakarth lining up a breath attack from above, Poisonous Ichor getting spewed, and then suddenly an Ushabti Greatbow arrow hits Brachus in the neck and completely cancels the breath, which is a huge problem because a breath attack from there would have probably done a lot of damage to Settra, maybe even killed a few of those Necro Serpents as well. But yeah, the breath attack fully got canceled, and it went through too, so it'll be on cooldown for a good minute or so. That's problematic. He needs those breath attacks, and he hasn't gotten any good ones this game. He's gotten a great dueling from Rakarth so far, but a breath attack would be a great way to turn this further in the Dark Elves' favor. Helabroni being exploded by the Casket, which is still supported by King Nekesh's Scorpion Legion in the back. Whiplash activated. We have not seen Akama's Mindrazor stacked with everything else, which is why he was only at, what, 1,300 weapon damage. Would have maybe been up closer to 1,500 if that had hit at the exact same time as all the other buffs. Big duel coming in, but Necropolis Knights are fully surrounding him, and they're imbuing that poison, and that's going to make it impossible for Rakarth to hit attacks on the Khemrian Warsphinx, who also has a 16 bonus versus large from Jaf's Incantation of Cursed Blades now. And yeah, Brachus is dropping real low. Nakara Horseman charging in from behind, and the Black Dragon is in dire straits now and will at least be routed off, if not outright killed, which will turn the balance of power in favor of the Tomb Kings. But the question is, can they actually finish him off? Undead seem to be in a commanding position with Brachus running, but it's weird with Black Dragon, Seraphon, Brachus, what have you, Maelstrom. Sometimes they just manage to take off into the skies. So Settra will start focusing on the Dread Spears, and indeed, Rakarth did manage to escape and may return to the fold. But Settra's happy to run over infantry. This is what he's born and bred to do. I mean, he's incredible in this role. Whatever may have been left of those Dark Elf infantry regiments just deleted from the game as soon as the Khemrian Warsphinx bounded into melee, and he's going to play with his food too. So the only way back for the Dark Elves now is if they get Brachus and Rakarth back into the fight, give him Akama's Mindrazor whatever buffs they have, and oh yeah, he's back, and a breath attack came in, and that was super anemic. I don't know what's been up with his breath attacks this game. One of them got canceled, which wasn't really his fault. That one was just bad. And the position didn't seem that terrible. It just seemed like it had crazy spread on it. It was not good. Anyway, he charged in, landed an attack, Nero's Incantation of Protection, giving him 40% physical resistance. Jaf's Incantation also popped, but this time not Overcast because he's too low to be trying to overcast anything that Overcast could honestly kill him outright, and Rakarth just went down. Brachus is dead. Oh, his body is broken. Look at that ankle. Oh! Oh! Eowyn, my body is broken. Ramsay Bolton just got Theoden. That looked really painful. Oh my god. Khemrian Warsphinx just ragdolling that poor soul. And now, oh, is Settra crumbling out? Yep, he's at 300 HP and he's dropping real quick. But the Dread Spears are lining up in column formation, which is probably just memes, to be honest, at this point. But it's going to set up a glorious Settra the Imperishable charge. And in fact, he killed so many on that charge that his leadership will stabilize. He's like, holy shit, that was fun. I want to do that again. And guess what? He's going to. Incantation of Protection would not protect him against crumbling, but popping it just for funsies, I guess. And oh my lord. It's just a sight to behold, isn't it? It doesn't get better, my G. Your existence has been revoked. Khemrian Warsphinx is a monster. Oh, how we have missed you. We missed Gorgons yesterday. We missed Khemrian Warsphinxes today. And, yeah, I think the Hellebroni and the rest of the Dark Elf army have seen enough. They may like blood. They may like torture. They may like killing. But when they're on the receiving end, they like it a whole lot less. And they have left the building. Settra had 86 kills before he started running into the Dark Elf formations there at the end. And in 2 charges against the Hellebroni and one other Dreadspear, he got up to 147. So he is killing, on average, about 35 dudes a charge. It's insane. In a single animation, killing 35 guys. It's just utterly ridiculous. So, for the Tomb Kings, it was really no one particular unit did everything, did all the heavy lifting. Like, all the elites were mostly over 1,000 damage value and got their value back. So, just kind of a good performance for the army across the board. For the Dark Elves, Rakarth put in serious work, 2,300 damage value. Almost all of that was bursting down Settra, and he wasn't quite able to finish him off, but I love the strat, honestly. Like, the stacking of the melee buffs on Rakarth, who is already a very good anti-monster duelist on that Black Dragon, and just trying to get him up into the stratosphere in terms of his combat performance. I mean, it was pretty close to working. It was only a few jukes from Settra in an opportune time, and the zoning out from the Necropolis Knights and the Ushabti Greatbows that managed to keep Settra alive. And even despite all that, Settra was seconds from crumbling out. I mean, at the end of the game, he ended with about 160 HP, so the fact that he didn't crumble was pretty bananas in and of itself. But really fun battle. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be working in plenty more Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3 content in the coming days. So I will see you all in the next one. Peace out. Goodbye for now.